Perfect. All right, thank you for your patience, everybody. All right, so I'm going to be letting people in as the presentation goes on. So if I kind of drift off a bit, it's because I am letting people in. Okay, so as Kelly said, my name is Emily Carpenter. I am the founder of SAGE Rochester. SAGE stands for Support, Advocate, Grow, and Educate. I am also a special ed teacher in the Webster School District, and I focus on executive functioning. So that's what we're going to learn about today. I am trying to look at the chat too. So if you guys, I love that you're filling in those questions. So thank you. Okay, so SAGE Rochester. Well, that's me. Okay, so just a little bit about SAGE and what I do. Let me admit someone. There we go. So we are a special ed agency located at the Golisano Autism Center. We provide services such as executive functioning teaching, social skills, parent consultations, being an advocate at meetings with districts. We create socialized stories and visuals, and we also do consultations with school districts. So we do a little bit of everything, and it is a lot of fun. And what's really cool is that we work with all ages. So I have a client that's 3 and a client that's 28, and we're able to help them all and help support everybody. So that is SAGE. Okay, so quick question. When you woke up this morning, how did you plan your day so that you would be able to join us? Did you figure out, okay, we need to do dinner a little earlier? Did we have to put the kids to bed? So how did you have to do, or how did you do that? And so just by doing that, you're using so many skills such as planning, metacognition, organization, mental flexibility, and more. So these are skills that we have been practicing our whole life. And by just waking up and saying, okay, I have this at 7, how do I need to plan my day? We are using a whole bunch of these skills. So what's really important is that no one is born with these skills. They need to be taught and practiced throughout our whole lives. And sometimes these skills can be more difficult for others. So executive function. So I took this blurb straight from the Harvard website because I think it wraps it up perfectly. And I'm going to read it just for my friends who are auditory learners. So executive function and self-regulation skills are the mental processes that enable us to plan, focus attention, remember instructions, and juggle multiple tasks successfully. Just as an air traffic control system at a busy airport safely manages the arrivals and departures of many aircrafts on multiple runways, the brain needs the skill set to filter distractions, prioritize tasks, set and achieve goals, and control impulses. So everything that comes into our brain, through our sensory system too, from what we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we smell, that is all filtered so that we're able to carry on our day. So as you know, these are skills that we use so much every single day. So what are the skills? Here is a list of them. Different websites will say different numbers. A lot of times they will break them down into three topics and then disperse from there. But the 8 main ones are impulse control, emotional control, flexible thinking, working memory, metacognition, planning and prioritizing, task initiation, and organization. So I'm just going to give you guys a second to read this visual that I have here, and kind of think, how do you use these skills every day? I'm going to let some more people in. All right. Oh no. Okay, so I'm playing a game. I'm going to play a game tonight because it's 7 o'clock on a Wednesday and we need to stay alert. So I'm going to go into each skill, but before there's going to be a meme, and you have to look at the meme and send in the chat what you think the skill is that we're going to talk about. Okay, so here's the first meme. And here's all the different skills on the right. What do you think the first skill that we're going to talk about is tonight? You could send it in the chat or say it out loud. Impulse control. Yeah. All right. So a lot of you guys are saying impulse control. That is correct. So I'm sure we all know friends that blur out a little too much. So impulse control is the ability to stop and think. So raise your hand if you have ever thought, oh my goodness, why did you just do that? And then they say, I don't know. So I know that has happened to me in my classroom. I know that has happened with family members, and I know that I've done that personally. So impulse control is all about the ability to stop and to think, which can be really hard for a lot of our friends. And I'm just going to fix my screen so I can, there we go. Okay, so how do we support impulse control? We can practice. There's multiple games that we can use. There's Simon Says, bubbles, red light, and green light. So for bubbles, what I like to do is you blow bubbles, but you have to tell your children they can't pop them until you say a special word. So you might say, okay, you can't pop the bubbles until I say frog, and then you say fish or bird, and then frog. So they have to stop and think and make sure that they are listening and using their impulse.
My friend, I'm in like 6 different places.
There we go. So I'm gonna mute that friend. Okay, there we go. All right. So I also like to pair visuals with being slow and in control. So I have a client right now that has some impulse control difficulties, and I tell him turtle. Turtle is being slow and in control of your body. And what's really great is we use that here. And then I have also consulted with his district of Fairport, and I've talked with his team, and they use the same thing. And so we have turtle visuals everywhere. He likes to wear suits, and he has turtle cufflinks on his suit. So he knows I need to be slow and in control of my body. And then when they do use impulse control, you want to praise that. Even if it's like a little bit, you want to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you stopped and you thought before you said that, or before you took the marshmallows. So it's stopping and thinking about what they are doing. Okay, here is the next meme. Go ahead and send in the chat what you think it is. Awesome. It is emotional control. I know that I've had those moments where I cry and I don't know why, and my fiance is like, what is going on? I'm like, I don't know. So we are going to be talking about emotional regulation. So emotional regulation is controlling your emotions so that you are able to carry on with your day or finish a task at hand. So raise your hand if you or your child have ever not been able to control them, or you're unable to finish a task at hand because of that. I know I have. After really long days, I just want to sit there and cry, and it's really hard to do my planning. So this is a really hard skill. And what's interesting is that this skill is almost like the base of a whole lot of other skills. Children and individuals that cannot learn, they cannot be supported, they cannot succeed unless they are at a regulated state. And a regulated state would mean that they are in control of their feelings. So when I have a client here, the first thing I teach them is our feelings. Because once they're able to say, okay, this is how I feel, then we're able to move on from there. So how do we support emotional regulation? We help identify emotions. Has anybody heard of these zones of regulation? If you could like raise your little hand thing. Zones of regulation is a phenomenal way to help them, to help me, to help adults, to help children identify feelings. So there's 4 different zones, and there's the blue zone where you might feel sad, and there's the green zone where you're happy, and the yellow zone, which is you're starting to lose control of your body and you're excited and you might be nervous. And then there's the red zone where you feel mad. And this is a great way to have children identify how they're feeling. And it's really great for those friends who have concrete brains, because they might not know that they're feeling nervous, but you might say, I noticed that your body is, your leg is shaking and you're getting sweaty. That might mean you're in the yellow zone. So I use this in my classroom. I use this at Sage. It is just the most phenomenal thing. So how do we help support emotional regulation? So we, 1, identify feelings, and 2, we practice coping skills when we are regulated. And when is in stars, because when we're upset, it is so hard to reach the tools in our toolbox. And our children or our students or our family members who are young, they cannot reach those tools. And if they don't have tools yet, they're kind of grasping at air. So when you are regulated, when the student is regulated, I suggest you do something like, does coloring make you feel better? Let's color. Or, let's take some big bubble breaths. And you practice these skills so that when they are in crisis, you can say, let's do a bubble breath. Come do a bubble breath with me. And you give them these skills so that when they are in a unregulated zone, they can use those tools. And most importantly, when they are upset, we need to be calm to help teach them and help co-regulate them. So if your child is on fire and then you meet them with fire, it's just going to become an explosion. So what we need to do, and I know it's really, really hard, is to come in low and calm and teach them how to regulate their bodies and their feelings. And this is really hard. It takes a lot of patience, because sometimes what they're saying is not nice and sometimes what they're doing is not okay. But we need to be that calming force so they eventually learn how to calm themselves. So that is emotional regulation. All right, next meme, here we go. What do we think this is? All right, we're getting a bit of a mix. So this is flexible thinking. Surprise, I got you all. Flexible thinking. That means we are able to deal with change. And to be honest, this is something that I struggle with as well. So raise your hand if you've ever ran out of the cereal your child eats every morning, and now it's Monday morning and they're screaming about not having Cocoa Puffs and having to eat tricks. We've all been there, right? Let me write. So it is, sorry, I'm letting people in. So things are changing and they don't know how to deal with them. And I laugh because this is something that I struggle with. I have a plan, and this is my plan and this is how it's going to go, and it cannot be changed. And it's really hard for me to change my plan. And it can be even harder for your children. So flexible thinking is being able to deal with change. So how can we support a flexible thinking? I call it stretching your brain. So you're practicing change, you're practicing flexibility, you're practicing just stretching it. So model it. Have you ever planned to have chicken for dinner and you forgot to take the frozen chicken out of the freezer and now it's not thawed in time for dinner? I just did that. Oh, I'm flexible. We're gonna get some Burger King, or you know what? Instead, we're gonna make a quesadilla. So model to your children, it is okay for things to change. We can problem solve. Another way to support it is let them know that it's okay to be sad. It's okay that you're mad, but we're flexible. In my classroom, my students find it hard. Change is hard for them. And so I always go, and then they go flexible, because it's something that we have to learn to be successful in life, is our flexibility. And again, when we are regulated, practice flexibility. So if your kid is having a really good day and they normally have pretzels for snack, maybe give them 3 pretzels and some Cheez-Its. So practice the flexibility so that when it happens to them, it's not as rough. So stretch that brain. All right. Next one, guess that meme. This might be a little tricky. All right. Yes, you guys are right. It is working memory. I know that this happens to me a lot. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go upstairs and grab something. And then I'm there and I'm like, what was I getting? So working memory is keeping in mind information to complete a task. So again, let's raise your hand if you ever ran to the kitchen to grab something and then you totally forgot what you were getting. I know it happens to me. So working memory is, think of it as Post-it notes in your brain. Post-it notes of information that you need. So you're like, okay, I know that I need to pick up so-and-so from soccer at 5. Post-it note in your brain. So the working memory is that. So how can we support it? Create lists or visuals, play turn-taking games, and develop routines. So I really like turn-taking games because the kids don't know that you're practicing it, but they need to know, okay, when it's my turn, this is what I do. And when it's someone else's turn, they need to hold in their mind still what their job is when it comes back to them. So that is working memory. All right, next one. See if this comes in handy. All right. Yes, you guys are right. It is metacognition. And what is that? Simply thinking about what you are thinking. So here we go again. Raise your hand. Have you ever been at the store and you tell your child to choose a book that they could read to themselves, and then they pick out a 500-page Shakespeare book and they're only in 1st grade? And you're like, what are you doing? That's not appropriate because they're not thinking about their level of reading. They just want the book, but they're not thinking that, okay, I can read a little bit of chapter books at that point. So they're not thinking about their thinking. So metacognition is reflecting on your day, reflecting on your choices, reflecting on how well you do, or what you might struggle in. So I know that, okay, math is hard for me, but reading is my strong suit. So knowing that about yourself and then using those skills to find jobs that work for you, or find friends that you would have things in common with. So just knowing yourself. So how can we support it? Have children answer questions such as, I wonder, I notice, I think. So maybe they're struggling with their math homework. You might say, I wonder why this is difficult. What do you think? And they might think, and they might, maybe they're not there yet. They might say, I don't know, or it's Mrs. Carpenter's fault. Or they might say, adding is really hard. So getting them to notice things about themselves. Along with that is allowing time to reflect on their actions. So maybe they got really mad and they hit someone. Why did you do that? How were you feeling? What were you thinking? Again, allowing them to reflect back. And then modeling as well is very, very important. So maybe you are in the kitchen cooking a new recipe and your son or daughter is there and you go, this recipe is new and I have to do a lot of new things. I'm thinking it's going to take me longer, so I'm going to start it earlier. So demonstrating what that looks like is huge. Okay, next meme. Any guesses? All right, we got some good guesses. It is planning and prioritizing. That is the ability.
It's like, but finally, they're gonna record it, but
there we go. Okay. The ability to create a roadmap to help reach a goal. So raise your hand if you ever heard, I can't find my hat, or I forgot to do my homework. That happened to me as a child. I hear it now as an adult. So all of that is using the executive functioning skill of planning. They need to plan to put their stuff in a space where they can find it. They need to plan to do their homework in time for school tomorrow. So seeing an end goal and making the steps to get to that end goal. So how can we support that? Use a calendar or an organizer. Use visuals. So I have some great organizers that are like, okay, this is due on Wednesday. What are we doing on Tuesday? What are we doing on Monday? So we back it up day by day. Put some more people in. Sorry, guys. So any kind of visuals are great. Apps on smart devices. This is great for older friends. There's an app called Brilly, and it's really great because there's an adult app, so it doesn't make you feel like you're using a child app. And what it does is you plan your day, you put how much time things should take, and it times you and it counts down. You have 10 minutes to take a shower, ding 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 ding, and then it goes off and you swipe it. Now it's time to do math. You have 30 minutes, and then it goes ding 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 and you swipe it, and it's really awesome. So again, that is the Brilly app. There is a kid version. There is an adult version. I highly recommend that if you or a family member struggle with that. And timers, visual timers are amazing. I live by them. I own like 500, I think. Counting down how long you have to do something. And what's great is that it's visual. So if they can't tell time, they see that red part gets smaller and smaller. Okay, I need to do this in this amount of time. And that is very helpful. So that is how we can support that. Next meme, one of my favorites. All right, so I'm seeing some answers back. Yes, it is task initiation. So that is simply starting tasks. So raise your hand if you ever yelled, you haven't started yet, and your mind is about to explode. I know that has happened to me. And I know that it can seem frustrating, and I know it can seem as if they're being lazy or say defiant when they're not starting tasks. But having difficulty with this skill, it is really, really hard for people to start tasks. And you want to go, just start it, but it's really, really hard. So how can we support this? A countdown timer. All right, I'm going to start at 10, and by the time I get to 0, you're going to do the first problem. So giving them a little boost. Something that I call hurdle help, which I don't think is a real term, but I've made it one, where you write the first line, you write the first letter, you write the first square, whatever it is, you just get them over that first hump. I know that I use this all the time with my clients here with my classroom at school. And sometimes it's simply just writing the first letter of their name on a piece of paper, and that gets them going. And then extrinsic motivation, which is external, which say like, oh, when you do this, you can have more screen time, which will hopefully turn into intrinsic motivation. So internal motivation. So in hopes that they see that doing stuff early on is great. And then by the time they get older, they want to do it for themselves instead of the screen time, but they might like both, which is fine. So that is beginning tasks and supporting that. All right, next meme. This one makes me giggle. All right, you guys are right. It is organization. So, organization is the efficient approach at keeping materials together. So raise your hand. Last one. If your jaw has ever hit the ground after looking into your child's room. You know what's so funny is I was making this PowerPoint last night, and I myself am very messy. And I made this slide, and my fiance goes, my jaw hits the ground when I see how messy you leave our house. So he would be raising his hand here too. Organization, being able to organize our homework, our paperwork. Not only that, but organizing our toys, organizing times we do things, events and activities, and just keeping track and keeping things efficient. So how can we support it? Label areas. So if your child has a really messy room, maybe you label books go here, games go here, shirts go here, and making it visual and right there for them to see. Checklists, those can be visual or they can just have words on them. That, okay, at the end of the day, you need to have put your toothbrush back, the cap on the toothpaste, and you need to put your clothes in the hamper and you need to be in bed. Check, check, check. So having that visual there to help remind them. And then color coding. I remember way back when I was it had to start in first grade, and we had to color code our folders, and math was red, reading was blue, so we had certain colors for each subject. And that carried on all the way through. And I do it in my classroom now. And it helps teach students and individuals that we need to keep things in a way so that we are able to find them later. So I don't know, math was always red, I think, and science was green, but color coding definitely helps. So that is, I believe, our last skill today. So the most important takeaway is that no one is born with these skills. They need to be taught and practiced throughout life. And even if, maybe you're older and you're like, oh my gosh, I need help with so-and-so. You can teach yourself. You can come to classes here. You can get help outside of here, but it's a process and you learn as life goes on. So that was really long. Thank you for listening. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Kelly, I'm going to unmute you.
I'm unmuted.
Oh, perfect. I just didn't know if you wanted to say anything.
Yeah.
There we go.
And we can stop recording here
Okay.
if you don't mind. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I gotta undo this. Hold on. Stop screen share. Yes. Okay. Stop recording.